Okay, number 2. We are asked to do a quadratic regression. This one is actually quite nice because it actually tells us we're going to do a quadratic regression. We don't have to figure out what the quadratic regression is or what the regression is. Let's go ahead and talk about that though beforehand. Even though we're not having to figure out what type of regression it is, I would like to talk about how that works. So for number 2, the quadratic regression, this is my data. When you have a table and are trying to get information, doing a regression is a great way to get that done. So whenever we use a calculator, I highly suggest us doing second plus 712. It's amazing how many people don't do that and they run into problems. So please make sure you clear the calculator. We're going to plug this data in. To plug the data in, we press the stat key. We're going to go to edit and we're going to put all the x values in. 0 enter, 1 enter, 2 enter, 3 enter, 4 enter, 5 enter, 6 enter, 7 enter. And then we're going to go to L2. L2 is are the y values. Same thing, we're going to start at the top, go all the way to the bottom, same order. 500 enter, 485 enter, 460 enter, 396 enter, 302 enter, 210 enter, 7D enter, and 0 enter. Just another reminder, we should all be doing this and practice plugging this in the calculator. Get that muscle memory built up. At the end, I always check to make sure my columns are even. If your columns are not even, you messed up. It will not work. And you will get an error. Make sure these are even. Once I have done that, I want to go to my stat plot. I want to see what this looks in the calculator. I want to make sure it actually does look like a quadratic. So let's go ahead and let's press this Y1 button, but where it says stat plot. But because that's in blue, I want to press the blue key and then stat plot. And all I want to do is turn plot 1 on. So I go to plot 1, press enter, and the very first option there, it says turn it on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Now when I press graph, my points come up. Only problem is I only see one of these points. I only see this last point. So I'm going to use this magical little key here that says zoom. Tap zoom, everybody. And I'm going to go all the way down, and there's one that says stat. The reason I'm going to do zoom stat is because I pressed the stat button to put this in. It's an easy way to remember it. Press enter. There is my graph. And it says it's quadratic, and it definitely looks quadratic. If I continue this pattern, it definitely looks like this would end up being a U. See how it's going like this? And if I continue this, it looks like it's leveling off there and would turn back down this way. And plus, again, it tells us it's quadratic, so we know it is. Let's go ahead and do the regression now. Once you have your data in and you know what type of regression you're going to do, you're going to go back to the stat button. Now, instead of putting information in the calc, in the edit part, we're going to go over to the calc part. Because we're doing quadratic regression, because my points look like they're going to be some sort of U, I'm going to go back down to my quadratic regression and press enter. As I go all the way down here, I like to store my equation in the calculator, because in part B of this equation we're going to use this to predict what's going to happen at 5.5 seconds. So if we're going to use this equation to predict things in the future, I always like to store it in here like this. If I store it in here, I don't have to put it in later. To store it in here, we're going to press this vars key. And the y var, once you press vars, you're going to go over to the y vars. We're going to go to the y var. Oh, sorry. We're going to go to the y vars right here. You can think about we're putting this in y1, so we're going to put y vars. and then we want functions. And now it lists all y1, y2, y3, y4. We want to go ahead and put this in y1 for us. And there it goes. We're going to store the equation in y1. Go ahead and tap enter a couple of times. There's my equation. My equation is a quadratic, and this is the key for it. This tells me A is negative 27. Ooh. I messed that up. That means I put my data in wrong. Let me go to my data, check it out. It doesn't match any of these over here. So let me check what I messed up. Oh, that first one says 50. It should be 500. Now, oh, not that. Alright, so I need to do my stat again. I need to calculate with my new data. When I fix it, I can go down to my quadratic regression. I'm going to do the same thing. Go to store regression equation, and that's going to be vars. Go to the right for y vars. Function, put that in y1. Enter a couple of times. Alright, now these numbers match. A is negative 8.6. That's the first dang it. Let me go back to that. I keep pressing the wrong buttons. It's already there. Okay. So there it is. A is a negative 8. The B is a negative 16. And the C is the 510. So it has to be this B right there. Now, as you saw a second ago, when I press graph, you can see how this goes right close to all those points. We did a pretty good job predicting what's going to happen. Now we need to figure out what it's going to be at 5.5. Please pay attention to how we're going to predict this. We can always press our arrow keys, and if you press your arrow keys, you can see, where's my arrow? You can see the arrow up here, and I can follow it along, and it gives you my X and Y. It gives you my X and Y values. The X values here, as it moves right and left, are my seconds. I want to figure out what it is at 5.5 seconds. So I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to move it over until we hit 5.5. Oh, there it was. 5.5 right there. And then I can move the arrow up and down until it crosses my line. It looks like it crosses it around 158, 159. So I'm going to say it's 159. You can see how it's 5.5. That is one way to do it. Another way to do it is if I look at the table, I find 5.5 on the X values. My problem is I don't see 5.5 here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change my table set. Table set, I do second window, and I can have it either start at 5.5 to get it where we want it, and that way the first line will just simply be 5.5, what the answer is. I'm not a huge fan of doing it that way for this one, because then I have to go back and change it later. Or I can go ahead and put this at 0.5. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and do both 5.5 and 5.5. This is going to tell me where it starts. This is going to tell me how my X's increase each time. So now when I look at my table, we're starting at that 5.5. Oh, at 5.5 we're actually 160. So that's actually going to be 160, or 161 if we round it to the whole number, is a closer answer. This will always be more exact than using the graph. In the graph, we're just estimating where it is. This is the exact answer right here. Now, that delta part, when I do my table set, this part with a triangle, this step, that is why, let me finish this. That is why this now increases by 0.5 each time.